Shalom Yasharallah. This is your brother Manatzazak from Nation of Kings and Priests. Today we got another Bible bite. Today we're going to talk about fear not. In other words, we are not to fear our enemies. We are not to fear the gods of these nations. We are not to fear physical harm from them, because our Father, Yahweh, our God, is more powerful than theirs. So I want to first go to Proverbs chapter 9, verse 10, because if you know this, then it gives you wisdom on how to deal with other things. Proverbs chapter 9, verse 10, and it says, "The fear of Yahweh is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the holy is understanding." So the knowledge of the holy is understanding. So we know if we have this knowledge and we have the fear of the Most High, it gives us wisdom, because it motivates us to do what's right in His eyes. Forget everybody else's eyes, but in His eyes. We want to go through an example of three strong brothers, three mighty brothers in the truth who upheld this. So let's go to we're gonna go to the book of Daniel, and we're gonna go to chapter 3. Right? And we're going to go through the whole chapter. We may skip a few verses here and there, but we're pretty much going to go through the whole chapter, and we're going to go through that, and we're going to hit on some other precepts just outside the chapter to kind of just prove some things and use this as an example, because the reality is that either in this time now or sometime in the future, we may be put in situations where we have to either, one, choose to serve the Most High and get some people upset and possibly have us put to death or injured, or show that we love the Most High and we are willing to be put to death and be injured to prove that point. So we have to stay faithful, we have to stay loyal. But most of all, we should only fear the Most High. We should fear no one else. All right, so we're gonna go and start with these brothers. This is chapter 3 of Daniel, and we're gonna start from the beginning. Verse 1. Nebuchadnezzar the king made an image of gold, whose height was 60 cubits, and the breadth thereof 6 cubits. He set it up in the plain of Dura, and in the province of Babylon. Then Nebuchadnezzar the king sent to gather together the princes, and the governors, and the captains, and the judges, and the treasurers, and the counselors, the sheriffs, and all the rulers of the provinces, to come to the dedication of the image which Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. Verse 3. Then the princes, the governors, and the captains, and the judges, the treasurers, the counselors, the sheriffs, and all the rulers of the provinces were gathered together into the dedication of the image that Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. And they stood before the image that Nebuchadnezzar had set up. Verse 4. Then a herald cried out loud, "To you it is commanded, O people, nations, and languages, that at what time ye hear the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, dulcimer, and all kinds of music, ye fall down and worship the golden image that Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up." So we see so far that Nebuchadnezzar, who is a heathen, is setting up false images and gods. And here he made a super big one, and he wants everyone in his kingdom to come and dedicate themselves to this God and bow down and worship it. So let's go on to verse 6. "And whoso falleth not down and worship shall the same hour be cast into the midst of a burning fiery furnace." So we see that he is threatening death to anyone who refuses to worship this image, right? These are situations that have happened to our people throughout countless centuries. And this will happen again in modern times. The image may not be a statue. It may be breaking the law, or having you eat things you shouldn't eat, or having you bow down to certain people or things that you shouldn't be bowing down and worshiping to. So let's go on to verse 7. "Therefore, at that time, When all the people heard the sound of the cornet, the flute, the harp, the sackbut, psaltery, and all kinds of music, all the people, the nations, and the languages fell down and worshipped the golden image that Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. So you see, all of these people, they already gave way to this thing. Now let's go on to verse 8. Wherefore at the time certain Chaldeans came near and accused the Jews. Right? So we see somebody's already noticing that our brothers are not bowing the knee. So let's see what goes on from there. We're going to skip down to verse 11. Now let's go to verse 10. It says, Thou king hast made a decree that every man that shall hear the sound of the cornet, the flute, the harp, the sackbut, the psaltery, and the dulcimer, and all kinds of music, shall fall down and worship the golden image. And also, and whoso falleth not down, worship Shalakia. And whoso falleth not down and worship, that he should be cast into the midst of a burning fiery furnace. So let's go to verse 12. There are certain Jews whom thou hast set over the affairs of the provinces. See, what's happening is these Chaldeans are snitching on our brethren because they refuse to bend the knee to this image. So they're running to the king and they're telling them this. There are certain Jews whom thou hast set over the affairs of the province of Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego. These men, O king, have not regarded thee. They serve not thy gods, nor worship the golden image which thou hast set up. Verse 13. Then Nebuchadnezzar in his rage and fury commanded to bring Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Then they brought these men before the king. Shalakia, hold on one second, right? Let's go back to verse 12 for a minute. In fact, let's see why. You see, it says that they did not regard the king, and they did not bow to this image. But let's see why they didn't bow to this image, right? Because there's a reason, and the reason is, the clue is that they're Jews. So let's go to the law on why they don't bow down to these things. And I believe it's Leviticus 26 verse 1. And this is why they will not bow down. This is in our law for our people, and this is from the Most High. It says, Ye shall make you no idols, nor graven image, neither rear you up a standing image. A lot of us have these images in our homes because a lot of our people are into idolatry. The Most High is telling us we are not to do these things. It is against his law. But let's go on. Neither shall ye set up any image of stone in your land to bow down unto it, for I am the Lord your God. So you see, these brothers, they know this law. They love their God and they fear their God, so they know not to do this. So let's go back here to I believe we were at verse 12 of Daniel. There are certain Jews who have set over the affairs of the province of Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These men have not regarded thee to serve thy gods or worship the golden image which thou hast set up. So we know why they're not doing it, because they have their own laws. We have our own laws that the Most High has given us. We are not allowed to bow down to these things. So let's go on. Verse 13. But one more thing. It also shows that they did not fear this man or their God. They feared the Most High most of all. Right? So that is very important. So let's go on. So to 13. Then Nebuchadnezzar in his rage and fury commanded to bring Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Then they brought these men before the king. Nebuchadnezzar spake and said unto them, Is it true, O Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego? Do not ye serve my gods, nor worship the golden image which I have set up? And verse 15. Now, see, the king is asking them a question. They didn't really answer the question yet. He's just going on in his conversation like he's just going to force them into this, right? So he says in verse 15, Now if ye be ready, that at what time ye hear the sound of the cornet, the flute, the harp, the sackbut, the psaltery, and the dulcimer, and all kinds of music, ye fall down and worship the image which I have made. Well, but if ye worship not, ye shall be cast the same hour into the midst of the burning fiery furnace. And who is that God that shall deliver you out of my hands? You see this? Nebuchadnezzar, this is a very powerful king, right? He is now giving them an option to worship his God or face death. Now, if these brothers didn't know the law, statutes, and commandments, and they didn't fear the Most High, they would do what everybody else there is doing and bow that knee. But because they feared Yahweh more, they chose to stay faithful and loyal, right? So, let me get a precept on this. Let me see here. Let's go to, I want to say Matthew. Let's go to Matthew 16 and 25. Because you have to realize, not only Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego are Jews, but there are more Jews in that place, not just them three. So there are others that are weak, there are others that are wicked that may be following along with this king. But these brothers, they have to make an example, and they have to prove themselves, and it may uplift the hearts of other Jews that are there. So let's go to 16 verse 25. And this is red letter from Yahushua. For whosoever will save his life shall lose it, and whosoever will lose his life for my sake shall find it. Yahushua is telling you, like, let's say these brothers would have been scared and they bowed their heads and prostrated themselves to this thing out of fear for them lives. They may have temporarily saved their lives, but in the long run, they would have lost their lives because they would have lost their inheritance. They would have lost their souls because they would have been destroyed, because this man can only destroy the body, right? He can't go beyond that. But let's go back to the, let's go back to Daniel. All right, where were we? We were at 15. So now, let's reread 15, and remembering what we just read, what Yahushua said. It says, Now, if we be ready, that at what time ye hear the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackcloth, psaltery, and dulcimer, and all kinds of music, ye fall down and worship the image which I have made. Well, but if ye worship not, ye shall be cast the same hour into the midst of a burning fiery furnace. And who is that God that shall deliver you out of my hands? Right? So now these brothers made a decision that they're not going to try to save their lives. They're going to, sacrifice themselves if they have to. But these brothers are strong and they have a lot of faith in the Most High. Let's go on. Verse 16. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered and said to the king, O Nebuchadnezzar, we are not careful to answer thee in this manner. In other words, what they're saying is, we're not gonna carefully answer you to save ourselves. We're gonna make it straight and plain to you, is what they're saying. If it be so, this is verse 17. If it be so, our God whom we serve is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us out of thy hand, O king. So they're telling him in his face, do what you got to do. We don't care. The Most High can save us. So they're going to move on. Let's move on to 18. It says, but if not, be it known unto thee, O king, that we will not serve thy gods, nor worship the golden image which thou hast set up. These brothers are making it known. You can kill us if you want to, but we will not be disloyal to the Most High. So they are not showing fear in the face of their enemy. You know what? Let's go to Matthew 5:16. And Matthew chapter 5, verse 16. This is red letter. It's Yahawashah again. It says, and I want you to remember, there are other Jews there watching this whole thing go down on top of all the people of the nations. It says, let your light shine before men, that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven. These brothers are setting things up in a way that their works are going to glorify our Father in a very big way, right? So let's go to 10. Hold on a second. Slack it one moment. If we go to Matthew chapter 10, verse 28, right? And remember, this is all red letter from Yahawashah. It says, and fear not them which kill the body, but are not able to kill the soul, but rather fear them which is able to destroy both soul and body in hell. Men can only kill your body. They cannot kill your soul. But the Most High can kill your soul and your body. So we have to understand that. We have, these brothers know this. And Yahawashah is explaining it. So we shouldn't fear our enemies, and we shouldn't fear them or put the Most High on the back burner because of this. Let's go to, I want to do one more precept on this. Let's go to Isaiah. I want to say Isaiah 44 verse 6. And it says, thus saith the Lord, the King of Israel, and his Redeemer, the Lord of hosts. I am the first, and I am the last, and beside me there is no God. So we see that these false images, they're false images. That's what they are. They are not real gods. And there is no God who sits with the Most High. He's saying it himself right there. So we shouldn't even fear their gods because of these things. So let's go back and let's go to Daniel. I believe it was chapter 3, and I think we were in verse 18. We'll reread 18. But if not, be it known unto thee, O king, that we will not serve thy gods, nor worship the golden image which thou hast set up. Verse 19. Then was Nebuchadnezzar full of fury, and the form of his visage was changed against Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Therefore he spake and commanded that they should heat the furnace 17 times more than it was wont to be heated. So this man was so angry, outraged, that he had the furnace heated up even more than it was originally intended to be heated. So, and think about this. These three Hebrews are defying him. So in a way, it's also humiliating him. But the Most High, I'm sure, is adding to the anger in this man's heart, because he is going to glorify his name in this situation. So we'll go to verse 20. And he commanded the most mighty men that were in his army to bind Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and to cast them into the burning fiery furnace. Then these men were bound in their coats, their hosens, their hats, and their other garments, and were cast into the midst of the burning fiery furnace. So now they got tied up and they got dragged up to this furnace, and this king actually had the furnace turned up so it was even hotter than it was originally. So let's keep going and see what happens. This is verse 22. Therefore, because the king's commandment was urgent and the furnace exceedingly hot, the flame of the fire slew those men that took up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And these three men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, fell down, bound into the midst of the burning fiery furnace. Then Nebuchadnezzar the king was astonished and rose up in haste and spake and said unto his counselors, Did not we cast three men bound into the midst of the fire? They answered and said unto the king, True, O king. Verse 25. You see, Nebuchadnezzar, of course, he had a higher seat. Being the king, he could see everything. And he noticed that these three fell into the pit, but he's noticing someone else in the pit with them. Let's go on. He answered and said, Lo, I see 4 men loose, walking in the midst of the fire, and they have no hurt, and the form of the fourth is like the Son of God. Then Nebuchadnezzar came near to the mouth of the burning fiery furnace and spake and said, Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, ye servants of the Most High God, come forth, come hither. Then Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego came forth of the midst of the fire. Imagine the faces of the people that are seeing this, knowing that we serve a totally different God than them. Just watch this. Watch what goes down. And the princes and the governors and captains and the kings and counselors, being gathered together, saw these men, upon whose bodies the fire had no power, nor was an hair on their heads singed, neither were their coats changed, nor the smell of fire had passed on them. So the Most High protected them. From the moment they made up their minds and made the decision to sacrifice themselves, to not break those laws, not break those statutes, the Most High made his decision to protect them, because these are his loyal servants. And the Most High will use this situation to glorify his name and to show his power in the earth, because King Nebuchadnezzar was the mightiest king in the earth at that time. Let's go on to verse 28. Then Nebuchadnezzar spake and said, Blessed be the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who have sent his angel and delivered his servants that trusted in him, and have changed the king's word, and yielded their bodies, that they might not serve nor worship any god except their own God. That's a witness right there. You have a heathen speaking this as a witness. Let's go on to verse 29. Therefore I make a decree. A decree is a law, for anyone who doesn't know. Therefore I make a law that every people, nation, and language which speaks anything amiss against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego shall be cut in pieces, and their houses shall be made a dunghill, because there is no other God that can deliver after this sort. Wow. Everybody's amazed at this. You know, even reading it, when you imagine it and you see it in your mind, it is awe-inspiring. And we will see stuff like this again in the future when things start to happen. There are things already happening around the earth where our brothers come through these things miraculously because they're faithful. Let's see what happens to Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego after going through all this. Verse 30. Then the king promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the province of Babylon. So not only did they gain respect and they honored and glorified Yahweh, they also got promoted by the king, and their positions were already high, so now they're even higher. The Most High can reward us anytime He wants to, as long as we are faithful and we are loyal to Him. Hopefully, this example pushes us and motivates us to do what's right in the eyes of the Most High. Because we have to show our love. We have to show our loyalty. We have a great reward coming, and we can't do it sitting on our hands in our house, being disloyal, breaking the laws. The Most High is looking for a few good men, some loyal people to do that His will. So hopefully this was an edifying little class. This is your brother Manatazak. Shalom, shalom.